Parashat Ekev. I would like to dedicate, first of all, this parasha to my late father, Gedalia Moreno ben Matilda. ולהבדיל רפואה שלמה of Mazal בת לאה, חיים ישראל הלוי בן שבתיה, אילנה רבקה בת רחל. This parasha is loaded with many important issues, many important topics. For example, Birkat Hamazon, putting tefillin on, and so on and so forth. But from the first two words of the parasha, Vehaya Ekev, we could learn a very substantial and deep learning to the spiritual growth of each and every one of us, especially in this generation. Especially in this generation. The parasha, thank you. Thank you, Eitan. By the way, also thank you to Idan, who made us unbelievable chulet. The parasha starts with the promise, והיה עקב תשמעון את המשפטים האלה, ושמרתם ועשיתם אותם. If you, as a result of you listening to the mitzvot, if you keep it, and you not just keep it, and you do them, ושמר השם אלוקיך לך את הברית ואת החסד. That's the condition for God to continue our covenant with Him. In other words, it's a contract. If you're going to do this, I'm going to do this. And which covenant? Asher nishba la'avotecha, in which He swore to your forefathers. Rashi explains the beginning of the pasuk as following, and according: Im ha-mitzvot akalot she'adam dash be'akavav tishme'un. That statement of if you would listen to mitzvot, according to Rashi, these are the mitzvot that what we call dash be'akevav is to step on with your feet, basically. In other words, mitzvot that are not really, I mean, it's wrong to say, but we say, not a big deal. So according to Rashi, specifically the mitzvot, if you're going to pay attention to this mitzvot that usually most people don't pay attention, which are very common and very light, like no big deal mitzvah. I'm not talking a mitzvah like writing a Sefer Torah would cost thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars. I'm not talking about, mitzvot that are, going over the ocean and doing all kind of things, and just like a little mitzvot. These mitzvot are the condition for God's fulfillment of His promise. On that, David HaMelech says, Lema ira be'imei ra. What should I be concerned with at the days of things that are going to be bad? Avon akeva yesuvuni. The sin of my heels will surround me. That's in Psalm 49, verse 6. Over there, Rashi explains, Al ma ira kshe'yavo hara ba'olam. What should I be concerned about when bad times are coming to the world? Just like we are now. What should I be concerning about? On the sins that I do of not paying attention to the small mitzvot. People are always concerned with Kiddush Hashem. Of course, it's very important. Kiddush Hashem is very important. But you should know that there are more things that are important than that. And these are the small things that really has to do a lot with your attitude towards mitzvot. It's something that I've been telling you a long time, and we'll see exactly what it is, Be'ezrat Hashem. And it says, these are those mitzvot in which I disregard and neglect. These are going to surround me when the time of bad will come, and because of that, I'm afraid, because of that will be the reason why we're going to be trapped in bed. That's going to be the reason. And we know that to have a situational awareness is very important. That's what we're talking about. We have to have a situational awareness. And a situational awareness, when you are aware, only when you have a situational awareness, you can reach the level of zrizut and constant in awareness. Zrizut means agileness, and being very agile, and constant awareness. You need to be constantly aware of what you're doing. Always. You need to be so aware that if somebody asks you, as the Khatam Sofer says, the awareness has to be that if you raise your hand and you went like this and somebody asks you why, you should be able to give him a reason. There's no such thing. Well, I don't know why I did that. I don't know why it happened. I don't know what got into me. What do you mean you don't know what got into you? When I was a kid, there was a book, a kid's book. And in the kid's book, this kid always says, it's not me, it's the Yeled Arashabi, it's my bad boy inside of me. Well, it's okay and it's fun when you are a little kid, but we use the same thing over and over again when we're also like 50, 60, 70, whatever, and anything else in between. We call it Yetzer Hara because it's convenient for us to call it Yetzer Hara. But Yetzer Hara, I'm going to have a chidush for you. Yetzer Hara, I'm going to tell you, Yetzer is because litzor is to create. When you don't have this rezut, you are the Yetzer Hara. You created the bad. Yetzer, ata yetzarta et hara. You created. They Yetzer Hara. Yetzer Hara is not some kind of a demon that sits there. It's not the Christian devil who sits there to get you in the fight of Armageddon. It's you. You created bad. Like we saw this guy on a motorcycle, on a thing, right? I mean, that a person like this has no awareness or situational awareness of what it is. A person like that cannot be zariz b'mitzvot. Most likely does a lot of averot. And you saw it when you, from the back, you see what he was doing. It looks ugly, but we don't think about this ugliness when we do the same thing. The guy was driving a scooter, and there was a lady unpacking her stuff from the car. So when she was leaning over, the guy, stopped with the scooter, looking like this, losing balance. Come on, man. That's what we're talking about. So when you look at something like this, it says, oh my goodness, it's ugly, it's terrible, what he's doing. But for whatever reason, when we do it, we seem to forget how ugly it looks when we saw somebody else doing it. It's terrible. So, but why does Rashi only refers to here to the akevim, to the heels? Akev, ladush be'akev is to step with your heels. What's so special about the heels of a person? What is the meaning of the heel of your feet to us? What is it? It doesn't mean anything to us. What are these mitzvot? The light mitzvot that Rashi refers to here. So when we go dwell deeper into the spiritual aspect of the parasha, maybe Be'ezrat Hashem we can find the answers for such a thing. In order to understand, as we said it many times, the meaning, the true meaning, or the root of the meaning of any particular word, it's very important to see where is the first time that it appears in the Torah. The first time it appears in the Torah, the root of the word Akev, Ayin, Kuf, Vet, is in the beginning of Sefer Bereishit, when it's told the snake, Ve'iva ashit bencha uven aisha, I'm going to put animosity between you and the woman, Uven zaracha, uven zara, between your offspring and her offspring, Hu yeshubcha rosh, he is going to chop, mankind is going to chop his head, Ve'ata, teshufunu Akev, you're going to grab his heel. So what's the connection between this root of Ekev, where it appears over there, and the incident that it's mentioned over there to our parasha and to our life, and especially to our parasha that really talks about keeping the mitzvot, and keeping the chukim and the mishpatim and so on and so forth, as the parasha says. Baal HaTurim tells us that the first time that Atzeret HaDibrot appears in the Torah, there is 172 words, and that's the gematria of Akev, the same thing. The Baal Shem Tov says that Aseret HaDibrot is the condensed version of the Torah. The purpose, the highest peak of connection that was given to us in Har Sinai. That's through the Aseret HaDibrot. So therefore, that the word Ekev refers to us to the essence of our Avodat Hashem. To the essence of our Avodat Hashem. And on the place, regarding the place, the time, and the specific most important point, and that of course is Har Sinai. So that's the correlation between, what we see, between Sefer Bereishit, Aseret HaDibrot, Mitzvot, and the word Ekev. And we live in a world that is full of suffering and misery and hardship and so on and so forth. And one of the greatest punishment where Adam HaRishon punished after the sin, the first sin that he did, was who's Yeshuv Charosh V'tat Shufenu Akev. You're going to chop his head, and he's going to bite you or grab you in the heel. And that is to live in a constant struggle with what we call the snake, or whatever the snake had put into us. Today I was driving with my son to Home Depot, and I saw some kind of a temple, again a Hindu temple. Among many of the statues that were there were 4 cobras in 4 angles of the building. I said, oh wow, how significant it is to what they do and to what we do in terms of the difference between the two. So that struggle between Adam HaRishon, mankind, and the snake comes to represent itself in the heel. The heel is a very important part of our body. A whole entire koma, a whole entire stature, a whole entire body rests on our heels. And it's very important to understand it. We could see it. In other words, whoever controls the heel controls the stability of the whole entire body. I never understand the women who have the need to wear 8-inch stilettos. I always give more respect to a woman who will wear flats. I'll tell you the truth. Or a cowboy boot, for that matter. It just doesn't make sense to me. But there's something also in terms of the statement that the woman makes, as far as I'm concerned. You don't have to agree with me between wearing flats or wearing stilettos. The snake that hits the ankle, the heel, is the source of all the suffering in the world. And the sin of Adam HaRishon caused him to disconnect himself from seeing the purpose of what he is here for, or for the reason why he is here for. And after that, the world, what was the world, and the world, of course, was different after the sin than before the sin. Now, if you pay attention, the story of Yaakov and Esav also has to do with heels. Yaakov controls Esav only when Yaakov does what he needs to do. In other words, not Yaakov himself, but in terms of us. But when we don't do what we do, we don't fulfill that. It was originally made for that. Esav is controlling us. Because why did Yaakov control the heel? Why didn't he control the neck? Or put him in kind of a submission, Brazilian jiu-jitsu? Because knock down the heel, you knock down the whole body. Control the heel, control the ankle, you control the whole entire body. But that grip will be determined on what we do and how we do the mitzvot. If we remember the purpose, therefore we can control the world. Control the world in this case does not mean, like most people think, we'll control the world, the elders of Zion, like the rest of the idiots out there. Control the world means direct the world into a good place. We should be the ones who directing the world into a place that it should be, not in the place that it is today. And the reason why the world is in a state that it is today has to do a lot also with us not doing what we need to do. And what do we need to do? Those little things. Those things that nobody pays attention. And that's something for us to think very, very carefully. Very, very carefully. Now, if you took the word olam, olam mishum he'elem. He'elem is hidden, something that really hides the purpose. The power of the snake makes a separation between the light and the vessel. The light should come and fill the vessel should become a receptacle to receive the light. Comes the snake and puts that barrier in between. Moshe Rabbeinu lived that level of no barriers. In other words, he was what we call aspaklaria meira. He was a clear lens that did not distort the light that came. That's how we should be. There is an example. Somebody did it. That was Moses, Moshe Rabbeinu. He did it. We should be able to do the same thing if we, of course, strive to do so. Of course, if we put our urges under control, if we not necessarily do whatever we feel like doing, if we choose to do what God is expecting of us to do. Each one to his level of clarity. By all means, God doesn't want you to become a bum. You cannot see God when you are sedated. For me, the state of the world was in the song of the Ramones. 24 hours a day I want to be sedated. That's so not Jewish that it's unbelievable. And yet I can't believe that many Jewish kids like that song. In order to get closer to God, you need to be in absolute clarity of the mind. You need to have a clear mind. One way that we talk about Chayat HaSadeh, that will control you, is not to bring into your home anything that would affect you. Anything that you bring into your house. TV, news, stay away from news. Newspapers, all kind of stuff that eventually would affect you, that would penetrate into your being, and before you know, sooner or later, what happened to your beard, man? Sooner or later, it's going to infiltrate into you, and you're going to be saying, that's Chayat HaSadeh, the animals of the field. That is the attitude of the world outside. Stop listening to news. Stop reading newspapers. Don't worry about it. You do what you need to do. Don't worry about it, because whatever happens, there's nothing much you can do. It will penetrate into your being. That's one of the dangers of, for example, going to college and taking courses that really mess up your mind. You go to college, you need to get an education, that's fine. Pick up what you need to do. Don't start becoming experimental on me. Okay? Now, that snake is also the cause to separate us from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We spoke last week that our job is to get closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And we said, how can a person get attached himself to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? HaKadosh Baruch Hu esh ochela, is a consuming fire. How is it possible? Hidabek b'chachamim u'be'ochzei Torah. Get yourself a rabbi that will guide you through it. Don't live on your own. You have to have a guidance in your life. Everybody has to have a rabbi. It doesn't make a difference how big of a rabbi. Somebody needs to. There's always somebody bigger than you, better than you. You need to have some guidance. Everybody needs to have guidance. Hidabek bechachamim. Learn what they learn. Learn how they live. Learn how they drive. Learn how they talk. Learn how to invest. Learn everything. Hidabek bechachamim. Learn the Torah. Why? Enam haaretz chasid. You can't possibly do the right thing if you don't know how to do it. And you don't know how to do it because you don't learn. And we need to come into terms with that. Wow, that was late. We need to come into terms with that. So when all of a sudden you can hear the voice of the Torah, you can hear the voice of Chachamim, means that there is another voice that overwhelmed that, the voice of Torah that constantly comes, and that's the voice of Nachash. When you feel that you can connect to mitzvot, that means that Nachash is overpowering you. So cut his head. So it comes from that all the suffering in this world comes because of hiding the purpose, and it happens because of the separation of losing the purpose, losing understanding. When you don't see the purpose of why I'm doing what I'm doing, the separation comes immediately. When you don't see the purpose anymore of why should I be married to this wife or why should I be loyal to this wife, the separation comes. That's the way it works. And because of that, the Milah Ekev is mentioned twice in the two opposing things. One in the concept of the Nachash, which separates, and one which brings us together to HaKadosh Baruch Hu by keeping the mitzvot. והיה עקב תשמעון את המשפטים, ושמרתם ועשיתם אותם, ושמר השם אלוקיך, and so on and so forth. And the second time, והיה אם שכוח תשכח את השם אלוקיך, if you forget God, והלכת אחר אלוהים אחרים, and you follow other gods of stone and wood, where today the gods of wood and stone are the villas that you build yourself in Jamaica Mistake and all the other houses, all those other rich neighborhoods. When you buy yourself a $2 million house and you have to work or you can't come to learning Torah, that is the God that you are worshiping. You're basically worshiping your house. So don't do that. And it says over there, והעבדתי בכם היום כי עבד תעבדו כגויים אשר אני מעביד אתכם. כן תעבדו, this is why you're going to get lost. עבד תעבדון, every time we have a double emphasis, double word, means that you have to, it goes to the root. עבד תעבדון, when it goes to avodah zarah, not only when you come to the land, not only you have to remove all the houses of worship, of idol worshipping in the land, you also have to root after them. So the same thing here, if you are not going to keep the mitzvot, you and your future generation is going to be lost. It all depends on you. You want to give your grandchild a chance to be Jewish, make sure you do the mitzvot. Im lo abet abidu. Your memory is going to be erased. Your memory is going to be erased. You don't believe me? Look around you. Look how many conservative and reform Jews turn into Korean churches and mosques. Where are all these people today? Today you see more religious people, Jewish people, than you see seculars. Because the other ones simply disappear. Where are their children? Oh, they're gone. They marry Italian, Irish, Thai, whatever they married. They're gone. They're not here. So, because, and why? Ekev, lo tishmeun bekol Hashem Elokechem, because you didn't listen. Because of, Ekev is because of. So, those two Ekevs are the two opposing of the good and the bad that stand in front of us. So when the snake bites the ankle, in comparison with other types of bites, whether it's a scorpion or mosquitoes or spiders, whatever and so on, which are not necessarily in the heel, but when the snake bites you in the ankle, in the heel, it really seeps through the whole entire body until it consumes the whole entire person. At the beginning, it's only in the leg, but before you know it goes all over to your body and doesn't leave anything from you behind. And this is one of the reasons why there is this battle on the heels, or battles on the ankles, and why it's so ancient and so meaningful. It goes all the way to Yaakov ibn Esav, as we just mentioned before. Right? So Chazal told us, Akol mitbarer b'machshava. Everything goes after your thought, your initial thought, and therefore you need to think well. What will be the consequences of each and every one of my actions? Am I letting the snake a stronghold within me and in my actions? Am I not listening to what HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells me? Do I let the poison seep in through my whole entire body, into my whole entire being? Or I'm listening to what HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells me. I listen to what the Torah says. I listen to what Chachamim says. You have to understand. That's why it's very, very important to put boundaries on the mitzvot, to make sure you don't stumble. And that's where the Kedusha comes, when you are careful with what is allowed to you. Because I'm going to tell you this, if our forefathers and the sages before us would not have put in place all these chumrot and all these boundaries, we would not have been here today. It's very simple. Again, that's something that you should do. Take the mitzvot and step up your game. Don't just do the mitzvah to finish and to go out. Do the mitzvah because it's another opportunity for you to get closer to God and to actually do what He asks you to do, which just by itself is a tremendous thing. For example, how many people try any possible way not to wear tzitzit? It's itchy, it's scratchy, it's night, I don't have to wear. I took a shower. Listen, I took a shower before I came here, for a change, I took a shower. It was night already, it was past after Shkia. I put my tzitzit back on. I can't think of my house, living my house without my tzitzit on. What's the big deal to wear tzitzit? What's the big deal? Why are you looking for a reason not to wear tzitzit? What's the big deal? That is an attitude issue, not a practicality. Because if you're itchy, so put cotton. Okay? So that's something that we need to think of. So am I getting control over the snake and getting this bracha? Right? If a person always has in mind, in other words, he has situational awareness, to tilt that Ekev to a good side, to remember the purpose, even if chas v'shalom he has very, very hard suffering, he knows that that's not the purpose. The purpose is olam haba. The purpose is olam haba, the ultimate pleasure that is hidden within the suffering. I'm being cleansed, so it's okay. So how do we get this clarity and we actually mechazek our emunah, strengthens our emunah, when our reality is a constant struggle or constant bombardment, should I say, of trials, of nisyonot that we put ourselves into, of hiding, not seeing clear and so on and so forth. It's really not simple. How do we deal with this? How do we get that certainty? So Netivot Shalom brings on the pasuk from the parasha, Ki tomar belavevcha, if you're going to say in your heart, Rabim hagoyim ha'ele mimeni. There are a lot of nations in the world. How can I win them? I mean, there are what? 8 billion people in the world? With all non-Torah-oriented opinion? And what are we? If we're going to be extremely optimistic, 17 million Jews. How are we going to? We can't even stand it. It's a tsunami of opinions contradicting Judaism. How are we going to do that? How are we going to deal with that? So he says, when a person experiences a lot of hardship and a lot of obstacles in his spiritual growth or in his spiritual path, he knows in his head that he needs to progress. He knows in his head, so you asked me that yesterday, right? He knows in his head that he needs to do the right thing. He knows that, but his body is heavy. His body is lethargic, doesn't allow him. He knows he needs to go to get up from to bed to daven. He knows that. But he says, I'm tired, I didn't go to sleep. So how do you deal with that? So for that, the Netivot Shalom says, that's called Bechinat Goyim Benafsho. In other words, that's when you let the Goyim control over you. In other words, that's when you want to receive for yourself. I want to go to sleep, I don't want to do that. You don't want to state your voice to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So, says the Torah, if you're going to reach the state in your heart that you don't have a power, or you feel emotional content, when you feel that you cannot overcome your ta'ava, your desires, your urges, it's all over. Rabbi, did you see the women walking in the streets? I can't control it. I can't control it? Or I don't want to control it. So when you feel that, you should know the following. When you reach the state, you should say, wait a minute. Ki Hashem Elokecha bekirbecha. God is inside of you. You are not empty. God is inside of you. Hashem Elokecha bekirbecha. In other words, you always have the ability to overcome. Always have the ability to overcome. And that exists into each and every Jew in the world. Any Jew that walked this face of the earth has this ability in him. That's the divine spark. That's why it's important to have a Jewish mother, that she is the receptacle for that spark to come into you, and for the ger who converts, that comes into the body of mikveh, that he goes up. When he comes up from the mikveh, he gets that spark. His face is different. He looks different. That's when he gets that. Like a knife, that when you take a piece of metal and you put it into, after it's hot, and you quench it, that's when they say it gets its soul. That's when you get your soul also. It is inside of each and every one of us to overcome the nisyonot and the ta'avot that he was handed, that he was dished. Your ta'ava is not like mine, and mine is not like yours, and so on and so forth. Each and every one of us has that hardware and the software to overcome that. If you choose not to, is because you chose to. And that, with this point inside of us that stays always pure, each Jew can overcome any ta'ava inside of him and elevate himself higher towards his purpose. As the Ramchal says in Mesilat Yesharim, in the opening, when he talks about Yesod HaChasidut v'Shoresh HaAvodah HaTmima, and I cannot recommend to you enough to read on regular basis the Mesilat Yesharim, because the older I get, the more I fall in love with this book. And I can't believe how I missed all these great points throughout the years. And believe me, I read it I don't know how many times. I can't tell you how many times I read it. I lost count. The Ramchal writes over there, and I'm quoting, "She'yitbarer v'yit'amet etzel ha'adam." It should be clear and clarified and clear by any person. Ma chovato be'olamo. What is your obligation in God's world? Ve'lama tzarich sheyasim mabato u'megamato. That's why you need to strengthen your outlook and your direction, where you're heading. Bechol asher hu amel, in everything that you do. Kol yemei chayav, as long as you are alive. How this fits into God's world. In other words, you always have to remember the purpose in everything that you do, and what purpose, what kind of a beneficial purpose is going to come out from what you're about to do. You need to think about it. And if there's nothing, you just don't do it, because it's pointless. It's a waste of effort. Go to sleep, for crying out loud, instead of doing something stupid. The word Ekev come to teach us that the whole entire universe is being conducted in terms of cause and effect. As it says, Lo ala lechem levado yichya adam. Not only about bread, it's not all about money, masari, mula, zingi. Huh? Kesef, dinero. Mucho trabajo, poco dinero. Muy bien, chulent. Me gustó. Es muy bien. Gracias.
Thank you.
You speak Spanish. You learn Spanish, yeah. I forgot. In other words, our existence, not only as humans, but especially as Jews, requires something more than bread, something more than money, this endless chase about money. Where are you going with this? You need something else, and that's purpose. And that purpose is in the Torah. Ki al motzapi Hashem, whatever Hashem, your purpose. Don't go look for Hare Krishna, or to do Zen Buddhism, or do Hatha Yoga, or Metta Yoga, or I don't know, Twitter Yoga, or whatever you want out there. You want purpose? Do whatever Hashem wants you to do. You have to have it. That's what you came here for. In other words, our existence needs another layer above. We need the physical layer, but you need something much more than that. And this is what you need to think. That's what you need to think. And that means that will give you the internal power to face the struggles and to overcome them. The Mekubalim sees in mankind that mankind is a magical entity. In the Goyish world, we have unicorns, we have demons, we have all fairies, and Mekubalim says no, you don't need to go there. Mankind is a magical creature, which is completely different than the rest of the creatures in the world, and it has the ability to live in two different dimensions at the same time. I mean, in terms of or two different worlds, which is the physical world and the spiritual world. Animals don't have a spiritual world. They don't sit down and contemplate about even philosophy. They don't contemplate. All they do is about survival. They eat, multiply, eat, multiply, and then die.
Sleep.
Well, sleeping is in between. So, to be able to hold, we need the balance, and we're able to hold into two essence in every actions that we do. In other words, in every action that we do, there is a shamor, shmirah, ve'asiyah. You need to keep, and you need to do. There is the yin, and there is the yang. There is the balance in between those forces. There is awareness, and there is action. And in order to fulfill our duty in the world, and to really put life in everything we do. Life! Because many times you see people do things, but there's no life in what they do. They look dead. To actually put life, nishmat chaim, in what we do, we need to connect and to put the neshama, to put your soul and the light from above in every single action that we do from our actions in this world. It's very important. I'm trying to make it as simple as I can, but believe me, it's so important to do it. And in order to do so, and by doing so, you actually brings a current of abundance and bracha to every aspect of your life. That's why I keep telling you, it's not how much money you make, it's how much bracha there is in your money. And the bracha in your money will be determined by how much neshama and how much the will of God, or what you do is according to the way of the Torah. You just don't understand that. And when you don't put that neshama, when you don't put the Jewish aspect, the halachic aspect into that, and you try very hard and it doesn't work, then you start cheating. And then you try to cheat and you end up in jail. You become a crook. Why there's so many Jews who are unfortunately crooks? Because they're trying the wrong way. You don't need to evade money from the IRS. You don't need to do money laundering. What are you, a laundromat? You don't need to do all these illegal things. It's wrong. First of all, from a perspective of just being wrong. And also because of perspective that it's the worst thing for a Jew to do. You can't do that. You can't do it. Listen, if you made a mistake, you made a mistake. Nobody's going to crucify you for a mistake. But if you do it deliberately, it looks horrible. And it looks horrible especially because you're a Jew, because even the goy knows that you should know better. And when we bring those light of abundance to the upper world, into this world, that makes all the difference in the world. And that's why, for example, it's very important to do the right thing and to pay attention to small mitzvot. For example, bracha. You don't make a bracha. Everybody knows not to steal. But you eat something without a bracha, you stole. Everybody knows that, right? So that's why you have to make a bracha, because we know if we didn't make the bracha, we stole. We know that the ganav, the thief, can only steal something physical, but he cannot steal anything that is spiritual. That's why the chayut, the essence of that. That's why the mitzvah of Bal Tachmod is so strong and so yet powerful that in a way corresponds with I am God. Because you're not trying to steal an object from your friend. I'm not stealing, I just desire what he has. Why? Because there is lo tignov, don't steal. Well, we know that, everybody knows that. But why the Bal Tachmod? Because Bal Tachmod, I'm not doing the action of stealing. I'm not grabbing it. I grab it in my mind. I want to grab the essence of that. And there's nothing that is more wrong than that. There's nothing that will be more contradicting to the actual existence of God than Bal Tachmod. But when you steal something, you should know, maybe you stole the object. So therefore, what you have in your hand is an empty shell. There's not going to be bracha on anything that you steal. So all these people think that if they're going to do the wrong thing, it's okay, I can steal from a goy. Who said to you you can steal from a goy? The Achiezer wrote in the early 30s, because people had the notion, it's okay to steal from a goy. The Achiezer wrote that because of that attitude, many communities are going to be wiped out, are going to burn out. The Achiezer wrote that. You can't do that. You're left with nothing. You're left with an empty shell. There's no bracha in what you have. So why steal it? There's nothing divine in it. So the bracha and keeping that situational awareness on every action that we have, in our terms, will be kavanat halev. We have to have the kavana to do the right mitzvah. Why am I doing the mitzvah? To go to olam haba? That's not good. The Rambam writes in Moreh Nevuchim, the reason why a person should do the mitzvah is because Hashem told you to do the mitzvah. As it comes down to the Kriyat Shema. Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Listen, Israel. Hear, O Israel. God is one. God is your God. God is one. And you should love God with all your heart, with all your might, and everything that you have. Right? And you should tie it on your hands, on your head, and da-da-da. That's it. Goodbye. No reward, no punish. Why? Why? Vaya, right? Later on we have Vaya im Shamoah. That's already for a lower level. ואהבת את השם אלוקיך בכל לבבך, בכל נפשך, בכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום, where? על לבביך, נו? ושיננתם לבניך, you have to teach it to your son, because you're obligated, ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, שוך בך ובקומך, וקשרתם, what? והיו? בן? וכתבתם? In other words, Wa'idan, kol hakavod. In other words, Rabotai, no reward and punish, no olam haba, no 72 virgins, no suicide bombers, nothing of that. Why you do mitzvot? Because God told me. Anything other than that is a diversion from what God had intended. And vayayim shamot ishmeu, if you listen, da-da-da, if not, da-da-da, so on and so forth. We should do the mitzvot because Hashem told us to do the mitzvot. And that's it. Period. Finished. And that we could put that ruach, the spirit, basically in every action, to be mekadesh ourselves through every action that we do, if we just follow what Hashem says. Why? Because He says to do so. And that could be, guys, in every mundane action of the day, whether it's cleaning your house, or shopping, or driving. If you do so, b'derech Hashem, everything becomes a mitzvah. And the essence of wisdom of this parasha is that our awareness is needed and important in everything that we do, and the emotion of thankful and appreciation. When we are thankful and we appreciate and we are grateful to what HaKadosh Baruch Hu does to us and gave us, to the opportunities and whatever He sends our way, only then we have the simcha ve'ahava, real joy and happiness. And that will turn every physical object, every mundane and not important physical action or object, to a vessel of bracha, to a receptacle of blessing in your life. And that could be in everything around you have, al mezuzot beitecha, uvisha'arecha, al levavecha, al yadcha. Everything will become a receptacle of kedusha. Everything will become a receptacle of bracha. And that could be also in your work and your parnasa. Don't cheat. Be merciful. And so on and so. Follow the laws of the Torah. And this is what's going to bring us long, happy, and fulfill and real life. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.